Hello everyone, this is Lesbian Talk episode 45, and...
The big 45, now we're middle-aged, technically.
We are, yeah. This is the fourth episode on Back Out the Glasses, so hi to the people from Back Out the Glasses, and hello to those people who decide that we are, crazy misandric heterophobes and stuff like that, because
I was committing misandry just before the call, I'm just saying.
Yeah, some people who comment on the videos there are a bit special. But today we are going to discuss several Christian movies with Zack Lawrence, who is from Indy Christian Review, a show that can be found on Blip, a very fine, how to describe it, evangelical Christian review show. If you're new to the show, about a year ago Zack was on talking about another 3 Christian movies, so we might make this a yearly thing.
Dun, dun, dun. Why don't you introduce yourself and say hi to our loving fans?
Hello, loving fans. I'm Zack Lawrence. As Diamana said, I run IndyChristianReview.com, and yes, I am a Christian, and I'm also a heterosexual male. So I guess that kind of, for the fact that they're having me on the show and not hopefully demonizing me, and I think that kind of throws out all those complaints that they're getting on that guy with the glasses. Just saying.
Although they could use a loophole, because every single guest we declare as honorary lesbians. So for the time you're on the show, you're not a heterosexual male anymore. So therefore, although on the other hand, you can go to like Narth and all after this and claim that ex-gay stuff totally works.
You can, yeah. It's all
I'll keep that in mind.
If you've come here as a fan of Zack, we'll try to be good. We'll try to not say fuck too much.
Yeah,
except for that time.
We're very capable of having like a big, important, yelling discussion about all sorts of things, but we're not doing that this time. We're
don't
just
yell
about
because
film.
it peaks my audio. But yeah, and also we're married, so it's not even living in sin. So there you go.
So
actually, wouldn't even be living in sin because we're not in the same country right now. But I digress.
Yeah, we're barely living.
I'm living.
So, but yeah, if you're expecting some sort of big theological debate or argument or various people saying people with other views are stupid, unfortunately that's not going to happen this episode. I suppose maybe it might happen at some point in the future, but not today.
Yeah, we're here to discuss the films.
But before that, we're going to mention that last week, our very good friend Justin committed suicide. Justin, I don't know how... I think he listened to a couple of episodes of the show, and but he
did. I didn't know that.
I'm pretty sure he did, yeah. But he wasn't like an avid listener. But Justin was Juario and Back Out the Glasses. He was a very dear friend to me and Omega. We would have Skype conversations with him. We loved hanging out with him at MagFest every year. We saw him only like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and just wanted to say that we miss him.
Gonna miss him very much. And if you're in a place like that and you think that there's just nothing for you in life, there's people that can help. And if you're watching the visual, I'm gonna have up. For a few different countries, the suicide prevention hotline. Call those people. You're not a bother to them. They're there to listen. Or, you know what? If you're one of our fans and you feel that way, talk to one of us. If you think that you can't talk to anybody else. We're here for you. Everyone's here for you. And, because that's something that's, anything you say on Twitter, you can delete, But there's some things that you can't take back. And taking your life is one of them. So,
Do you have anything you want to add to that, Zach?
I'm familiar with him. Didn't know Justin personally. I'd seen him in some of that guy with the glasses crossovers and stuff. I did find out that we lived in the same state and we had a mutual friend on Facebook. I discovered after the fact. So it's kind of very saddened that maybe one day I could have been able to meet him. So just the not being able to have that chance, it's hard. And my prayers go out to his friends and family just for comfort. And
You mentioned that you had a mutual friend on Facebook, and it just struck me that you are close to approaching the level of niceness that Justin had. So maybe it's something to do with Colorado.
It might be.
Yeah. Well, it must be rubbing off on me. I am originally from Southern California, so.
Oh no,
maybe that has something. So yeah, don't hold that against me. I always have to keep telling it to people here in Colorado. I'm born and raised in California. Don't hold that against me. They tend to forgive me. So.
Well, I will try not to hold that against you.
Oh, I appreciate that.
I'm confused. I am very confused by that type of statist bigotry. What did Southern California do?
Well, Colorado is a much more conservative state. At least the area I'm in is more conservative, and so Southern California is not. So it's more on the political side of things that I tell people not to hold it against me.
Parts of California are very liberal, and then there's parts that are kind of conservative. But depending on what state you're from, you'll have a different view of, someone from California. Like, on the East Coast, even though we're pretty liberal on the East Coast. So like, oh yeah, those whack-mobiles out in California, God only knows what they're up to.
Yeah, one of the jokes is, the country leans so far to the left that all the fruits and nuts roll into California.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
That's strange. My father said that about England, but about Cornwall. Because Cornwall is the part of England that's right at the bottom underneath Wales. And it's a county. It's basically like the UK's version of Florida, because it's got slightly better weather than the other parts of the country. It's got a bunch of pirate history. It's got a bunch of eccentrics living there. So my father would say same things about Cornwall. Yeah,
but your father said he has views about different parts of the UK, but because of his Scottishness.
This is true. Anyway, on to the main gist of the show. We're going to talk about 3 Christian movies. Now, 2 of them are films that none of us are connected to. However, one of us is connected to the third film, but you're going to have to find out about that later on.
Ooh, cliffhanger.
What is the first film we're going to talk about, Zach?
It is Christmas with a capital C.
Now, this was one of my requests, because originally Omega and I were going to talk about this in an episode around Christmas, but then we sort of watched all the Silent Night, Deadly Night movies, and so we never got a chance to watch them in time. Because I remember watching finding the trailer for this on YouTube, and it looked like a fake trailer. And
it really did. Like, from the trailer, it looks like the kind of fan fiction that Sarah Palin would bring to bed with her with 2 AA batteries if Todd wasn't in the mood. Just saying.
And then whenever I discovered it was a real film, based on the trailer, I just assumed it was like the sort of film that would instigate an anti-secular hate crime. But so that was interesting to me, so I put it to the side, and I'll check that out at some point. But then I saw a review of it by Rebecca Watson, who is vaguely famous in sort of secular terms for being quite ardent. Yeah, and but she gave it as much of a glowing review as she could, unironically. And I was like, okay, this does sound interesting, so I checked it out. So I bought it, and I thought it would be good to talk about. And do yourself a favor, pause the recording right now, and go and look at the trailer for Christmas with a capital C, because that is not the film you get with the film. That is not the film you get.
It's really not. Like, I saw the trailer, and I was ready to be infuriated. And I have to confess that I still am infuriated by the title, because Christmas will always have a capital C. Why? It's a proper noun. Like, I went into a whole grammar rant when she told me about this. I was like, no, you can't do that. You can't demote a proper noun just same way you can't canonize a regular noun by capitalizing it. There's never going to be Christmas lowercase because it's a proper noun.
Yeah, that was your strategy for us being inconspicuous at the Family Christian in Exton in Pennsylvania, was you ranting about Christmas and grammar.
But ideologically, you can believe whatever you want, but you can't screw around with grammar. That's not how this works. It's in the Bible somewhere.
Sounds like we haven't discussed it personally with each other yet. But
I just watched it this morning.
It sounds like we've got very similar.
I just watched it last night, actually. So.
Oh, good.
Actually, it was technically this morning. Actually, by the time I was done, it was about like 1:30 this morning when I finished it. So yeah, I don't feel so bad now.
It sounds like we're pretty much of a mind about it. But what did you think? I'm really curious to hear.
It ended up being better than I expected it to be, in all honesty. I hadn't seen the trailer. I just saw it sitting on a shelf. I'd seen the title, and just from the title, I had a feeling of where it was going to go. And also apologize real quick. I have a couple kids, and they're also talking in the background. So if you hear children in the background, those are my kids.
Just be like,
anyway, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it ended up being better than I thought, because it didn't seem to focus. It tried to focus more on the personal stories of the characters rather than just with kind of the backdrop of this whole Happy Holiday versus Merry Christmas battle, or War on Christmas, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, it was a pleasant surprise, but also elements that didn't surprise me. Things I kind of expected considering some of the cast, particularly Brad Stein, who...
oh yeah, the unfunny guy who thinks he's a comedian.
Yeah.
Oh, is that the brother?
I wouldn't call him a Yeah, the brother. I wouldn't call him a stand-up comic. He's more of a stand-up ranter, from what I've seen on YouTube.
Yeah.
His character struck me as somebody with Asperger's syndrome, whose preservation was religion. Because there are autistic folks out there who get really into religion, especially it's very ritualistic, so it's, very cool, and it's very easy, if you're autistic or on the autism spectrum, to say, well, here's a rule book for everything in the world, and all we need to do is follow that and everything's going to be fine. So I interpreted his character as mildly autistic, but your mileage may vary.
Yeah, I basically interpreted him as Brad Stein playing Brad Stein, and throwing in. There's like three or four of his speeches when he starts going off on Christmas and versus Happy Holidays and all that stuff. It's basically almost verbatim some of his routines you can find on YouTube.
Oh, so he did a Kirk Cameron and Left Behind too.
Basically.
Oh, I just thought he was scripted that way.
But maybe Brad Stein is autistic.
It's possible.
I don't know.
We should ask.
Interesting. No, I think this movie is based off of Brad Stein's routines, which inspired a song with the same title. At the end
I saw that in the credits.
It says based on the song by I don't remember who it is now.
Go Fish.
I've heard Go Fish. Okay, I don't listen to Christian radio much anymore. I did growing up, and I remember hearing that song years ago. And that's part of why I came in with some expectations.
So this is Christmas with a capital C, Ception. Movie based on a song, based on a guy who's in the movie.
Well, I saw that credit right at the end. It's based on the song by the Go Fish. And I was thinking, well, at least it wasn't as bad as the Christmas Shoes.
And they used the song in the end credits, and the song is almost completely. It seems to be completely opposite to the message of the film. Like the message of the film is the First Amendment clearly states that you got to keep the public sphere.
Oh, honey, that's not the First Amendment. The First Amendment is freedom of speech.
You also got separation.
Yeah, but that's not the First Amendment.
Oh, sorry, European. But the separation of church and state thing says that the public sphere has to be kept sort of secular or a religious free-for-all.
Well, not the public sphere. It's basically, it's got to do with the government. Like, how they said, oh, well, you can put it in another public place as long as it's not government property. Yeah,
that's what I meant. That's what we usually refer to as public sphere over here.
You socialists are so cute.
So, but the film,
we should probably give a synopsis because we've been talking about it. But basically, there's this little town in Alaska with 4,000 people, which actually is obviously filmed in a resort town because everyone has really nice houses, and they don't talk about being really wealthy. So there's this little sleepy little Alaskan town, and it's coming up on Christmas, and everyone's excited, don't you know? And then, oh no, this guy comes back to town who used to live there, but he went away to other parts of the country, and
oh no, it's the fat Baldwin.
Yeah, but the whole thing, he comes up, he's like, hey, they're like, I heard you went somewhere and earned money, douche. And he's like, oh. And so he comes back to town, and he's the main character's, rival. Oh, they fought about everything. They were romantic rivals for his wife, and he's the mayor and things and stuff. And I gotta say, immediately I felt bad for the bad guy because, he basically comes to town and everyone's like, huh, douche. And he's like, but I just, oh. And throughout the movie, he's really only defined by the characteristics of having left the town, having made good, gotten a law degree and made money, and being the guy's rival. Like, he's basically defined by his role versus the main character, and I was like, that kind of sucks for him in life. But so they're putting up this public, scaffolding that's going to have the town nativity scene, and it's this big tradition and stuff like that. And he's like, wait a second, you can't spend taxpayer money on that. You have to do it privately. I'm suing. And everyone's like, oh shit, got real now.
So the whole film is about this sort of like fight over Christmas and there's like a cute little subplot with the teenage son and his rivalry with this girl, and he basically has to be told, dude, she's totally crushing on you. Oh, okay, yeah, that's cool. Does that mean that the main guy, the mayor, was crushing on Daniel Baldwin?
No.
No. So
it wasn't
so
even.
They did try to draw a parallel there with how they were interacting with their respective rivals.
See, it wasn't quite as progressive
Well, I
as that.
don't know if it was crushing on. Yeah.
Yeah, because the son even says, well, my situation is different. Oh, why is that? My rival's a girl. And then at the end, he's like, so how's that rivalry coming? Well, things and stuff. Dude, she totally likes you. Oh, okay. I thought that was kind of cute.
If I can remember what I'd read about the film correctly, the original script was written and it was more traditional, what you'd expect, but then it was rewritten or redrafted by the guys who made it, and who were actually, if I remember correctly, they're Christians from the Netherlands.
Which makes a lot of sense.
So they're like, we totally don't really understand why the Christians are being such douches in the original script, in the script. Let's change stuff. And then they released it.
It is, like, pretty much, it's not what I expected because first of all, it's very well acted. And second of all, there's a lot of parts where you'd expect someone to say something totally douchey and not, you know, I don't know what the word for this is, but when a script sounds like it's Dick and Janing, like, oh my gosh, yes, I know, right? Like, language doesn't sound natural. But, you know, a lot of people are like... Stilted, yeah. But you'd expect that kind of dialogue, and a lot of points people were like, well, maybe we should really think about that in things and stuff. The guy was like, no, he's going to ruin Christmas. And the town council's like, well, you know, we probably should have thought about if we have people of other faiths in our town of 4,000. And then he's also trying to bring a cruise ship in, because Alaskan cruises are pretty hot commodity. And the mayor's like, no, he's totally up to something. And everyone's like, what, he's up to helping us make money, and this is a bad thing? How?
Yeah, it's honestly. Oh, go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, I liked how everyone had their flaws. The characters were all realistically flawed.
Yeah.
They didn't have the perfect Christian characters is common in Christian films, and having people be realistically portrayed, I think it was definitely a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, like Buddy was kind of prideful, and his wife called him on it a few times.
Yeah, Christian filmmaking is one of the tropes of Christian filmmaking is that if not all Christians, but most of the Christians will be whiter than white, perfect people. And I'm really glad to see. I hope this is the first of many films that do this, because it's one thing that could make their filmmaking craft take it to a higher level.
Yeah, there was a black lady, and I was shocked. I was like, oh, there's a black lady in this Alaska town. I didn't expect that from a Christian movie. Which is kind of unfair of me, really.
Yeah,
it's just weird just with the character, because she just kind of appears out of nowhere with no introduction as to who she is, and she's at this important church powwow. I was like, wait, who is she? She didn't even get a name.
I figured
that's the only thing I really noticed about her. I was like, oh, where'd she come from? And there she's gone. She's gone now. that was the only thing I really noticed with her character. But that scene though, where she is there, where they're kind of trying to figure out, you know, the Christians are kind of together, all four of them, and trying to figure out what are we going to do about this. That is probably my favorite scene because of some of the things that were said there, especially by the mayor's wife. I'm grossly paraphrasing, but basically she expressed the sentiment that, you know, we're not gonna, you know, it would be worse if we act like jerks about this whole thing. We don't have to be right about this. We would reflect Christ better by actually acting like him and not insisting on having our way.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty good, because the whole movie turned into being about the nature of compromise, which I think that maybe, I mean, don't take this the wrong way, honey, like, that a foreign filmmaker kind of get the American psyche, because as far as we're concerned, a compromise means someone's, you know, not only won, but they've taken away your genitals too. But, like, this whole movie, at the end, they were like, what are we going to do? Let's just all compromise. And I was like, what a good ending. Everybody compromised, and everybody was happy, and the town was welcoming to this guy like they should have been. Hooray.
Yeah, the Dutch director accidentally the outcome that he created is, I don't know if this was noticed by anyone actually on the film or not, but that's the outcome that is generally sought by, like, the ACLU and all, which is you have the religious things off of government property and you use private funds to fund it, but you can do what you like. And it's completely the opposite of what you'd expect from this sort of film coming from Pure Flix, and it's like, well done, Pure Flix, but I get the feeling you didn't realize what you were doing.
Yeah, I was definitely expecting more of a martyr complex going on there, like we tend to have, especially with the title, and having seen Brad Stein's stuff in the past. It's almost like, even just seeing how the actors reacted when he started ranting and going off of his usual routines, the way people reacted, you can almost tell. I was almost wondering, are the actors just like, okay, get this scene over with, you can stop talking now? And, not many disrespect to Brad Stein, because I do like some of the stuff he says, and I do find some of the stuff funny. I can't remember any clips at the moment, but I just found, as soon as, especially in, like, the one part where he talks about, put a helmet on, it's my country too, like, that is verbatim from his routine. And I think one of his DVDs is called Put a Helmet On. That's kind of his whole recurring.
He does know that some of the founding fathers were just regular deists, right?
Some of them were also atheists, and various different groups.
And I'm sure there was a Jew in there somewhere, so.
I don't know if there was I haven't heard of one. I would be really curious to find out if there was.
Yeah, but I'm sure that somebody in some part of the continental process.
Yes. The guy who funded the first, who funded the colonial army, he was Jewish, but then he basically bankrupted himself doing it, and then the newly independent United States refused to pay him back, and he ended up destitute. Well,
there's a very famous story, and I don't know if this is urban legend or if this actually happened, about at Valley Forge, where, the troops are wintering and everybody was pretty much starving and suffering and dying of everything. And so General Washington's walking around and he sees one of the huts, and these are huts that you can still go into, by the by, if you ever go to the park. It's Valley Forge National Park. It's pretty cool. And he walks by one of the huts and he sees light coming from inside. He's like, what's going on? And he goes in and there is one soldier who is lighting a menorah. And he said, what are you doing? And the soldier's like, let me tell you about Hanukkah. And George Washington's like, that's kind of cool. And went away. And I don't know if that really happened or not.
I discovered the name of the guy who I was thinking about. It was Haim Solomon. And he was indeed the financier of the Continental Army and the American Revolutionary sort of army.
So there. But, you know what, all in all, I went into it expecting to be infuriated, and I wasn't. So, I mean, like I said, the little girl who was the main character's daughter, she was cute as a child actor. She wasn't too cloying. I mean, it was a cute little movie. And it didn't piss me off.
With Brad Stein, Zach, do you get the feeling that possibly they might have done a bit of a Charlton Heston in Ben-Hur with him? For anyone who doesn't know, Ben-Hur, in the movie Ben-Hur, the director and Gore Vidal wrote the script, could only get round the idea of making the relationship between Ben-Hur and the Roman guy believable by coming up with the subtext that Ben-Hur and the Roman had been lovers. However, the guy playing the Roman was told about this, and the director knew and the writer, but no one was to tell Charlton Heston because he wouldn't go along with it. So they had to. So do you think it's possible that they basically kept the bent of the film away from Brad Stein, and then so then he got a shock when he watched it?
I had not heard that story about Ben-Hur, but yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if that's what they did with this, because just seeing how his character was portrayed as, not being very helpful when he would go off on his rantings, and the way the characters would react to him, and just, how the light that they put him in, I did find very curious, maybe even ironic, considering, how he means everything that he was saying there.
Yeah, I totally, unfortunately, interpreted him as an adult with special needs. Sorry about that.
It's, for anyone who's familiar with Christmas with a Capital C, the song, or Brad Stein, you could view this whole film as like a commentary on the other ones and viewing them as slightly assholey, which is just, I find really amusing.
I mean, it made me want to visit Alaska, at least.
Yeah, gorgeous location for sure. The filmmaker in me is just drooling over that place as I'm watching, especially the opening credits with all the admittedly rather shaky aerial footage, just with the mountains and the scenery. It's like, ooh, pretty.
I've always wanted a log cabin like that, but with a router, obviously.
And with central heating.
Well, you don't know that those places didn't have central heating. Just because they had a fireplace doesn't mean they...
And I'm thinking I was thinking actual log cabin.
Oh, no, like a... I mean, that's one of the things I noticed about this film is, everyone's like, he went off and got money. And I'm like, yes, but you said that your town has 4,000 people. You must have a lot of exporting going on there if you guys can all afford to live in these obvious resort cabins, but that's okay.
There was one thing I noticed, which I'd read that Daniel Baldwin had altered a couple of his characters' lines and refused to say some things because he felt that the character was, as written, was a little bit of a caricature. And so apparently that's part of the reason the guy who is in the trailer seen as the villain was a lot more sympathetic. But the fact that you discover later on that he had done some sort of shady dealing or he'd done something not quite above board when he was in, I believe it was in Los Angeles.
It was probably insider trading, is what the guy made it sound like.
Yeah, so something like that. That, I think, might be one of the parts that were sort of left over from, like, the original draft or something, because...
they totally snoop into his life.
Because atheists, I've noticed, according to polls and stuff, tend to be very, very distrusted and seen as sort of immoral in some ways in America. And so that might have been a leftover when he was the complete actual villain.
Yeah, but then they have this part where, so they talk to his law firm, and for some reason this guy feels compelled to spread rumors, which is totally not professional, but whatever. So he's like, oh, well, if you see him, give him this, and he throws down this huge stack of $100 bills. And they're like, what? And he's like, no, just tell it came from an old friend, he totally helped me out. And so you figure, he helped him out in the business, but then, like, when they finally give, him the money, he's like, oh, how did this guy know where to find me? And they're like, well, how did you know it was that guy? And he was like, this is exactly the amount that I gave him. His wife had a baby, and he was in hard times, and we're like, aw.
I just thought it was funny. Like, my first thought is when he pulled out that wad of money, he's like, so you just carry that on you, hoping you'd be able to give that exact amount to the guy who helped you out all those years ago, who you don't even know where he is?
Well, no, look at it this way, because I wondered that too, because you know how, like, they were sitting in the conference room, he's like, oh, I'm sorry, it took me so long to get to you. I figured that the guy heard that they were there asking about him, and he was like, oh, wait a second, if they know him, maybe, so he went to whatever, the keeper of petty cash, because if it's a prestigious law firm, I'm sure, the secretary keeps petty cash, even though hundreds aren't really petty, but maybe it is for their firm. So he's like, well, maybe they know him, so maybe I can take a chance and they're the right people.
Okay, yeah, I didn't think of that. Of course, like I said, it was like 1 a.m. when I was watching it, so I didn't
You're like,
quite.
Where's that money coming from?
All my faculties weren't quite there. No, that is a good point. I didn't think of that.
So before we go to the next film, just wanted to say, if you're interested in a Christian Christmas movie that is not what you'd expect, but you'll know what to expect now because you've listened to us talk about it, check out Christmas with a capital C. It is.
It's not as bad as it could have been.
No. It was. I'd put it into good. This is the sort of film that I think a lot of people could do with seeing at Christmas time. Actually,
yeah. If more people saw the movie, it was like, wow, maybe we should realize that, everyone compromises, even us, and just live a good life and do good stuff and celebrate, and everything will work out in the end because compromise.
Yeah, I especially appreciate it too, just because it offers a nice change of perspective on the whole war on Christmas thing that likes to get thrown at us and rile us up. Speaking as a conservative Christian, and understanding where they're coming from, I really appreciated the different perspectives. Like, let's look at the big picture here. Let's not be so quick to demonize people who don't want to celebrate our holiday because they don't believe what we do. Let's instead, maybe act a bit more like Christ and show the love of Jesus to people and not be so quick to have our way all the time.
Yeah, and whip money changers with a birch twig.
There was no birch twigs in this.
I'm just joking.
Well, something that I was thinking of is it doesn't even matter the religion. Like, I had a coworker years ago at one of the stores that I worked at who did not celebrate Christmas. He was from, a Catholic family, but he lost his parents in a car accident around Christmas years before. And it just was he didn't have anything to do with the holiday. He always volunteered to work Christmas Eve and the day after Christmas because it just was so triggering for him. He just didn't want to think about it. And I can respect that.
I'm non-Christian. I have never been neither of us are. I
was Catholic for a while.
Yeah, you sort of took meandering. We're both sort of fairly outspoken atheists, but like you at least part of your life were a Christian, while I've never been Christian. I was brought up in a very, very small minority religion, and so therefore I've never done Christmas, and it was used as a stick to beat me as a child. Not literally, but other children would basically use Christmas as a way to bully me, and as a result, I don't much care for Christmas. And but this was a Christmas movie done pretty much right.
And that's what
I
we have to
agree.
say about that.
So, on to our second movie, and Mr. Zack, what is this one called?
Revelation Road, my favorite not genre of Christian films, the end times genre.
Revelation
Oh my!
Road. Doesn't it sound all sexy?
I think, ironically, you're the person in this call who likes Rapture movies the least.
Yeah, that's amazing to me. and I've seen your Left Behind review and your the Apocalypse quadrilogy reviews as well. So
wow.
The fact that you say that to me means a lot.
So what did you think of those videos, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh yes, you did fantastic. I think you came across a little too harsh on Kirk Cameron, but I don't know. Maybe you're just the character for that. I don't know.
Well, with Kirk Cameron, it's, how should I put it? A lot of the actual feeling, you know, I don't care for him. You know, if he was David A.R. White, I'd be a lot nicer, because David A.R. White he's like the guy that Kirk Cameron wishes he was.
Ooh, bird.
So for anyone wondering, Revelation Road, it's another Rapture, though this one doesn't feature the Antichrist because the Rapture happens right at the end. Which,
Do you want to know something? Just diverging for 1 second, that my favorite part of the Apocalypse quadrilogy is that part where you're like, who's that Pokemon? It's the Antichrist. I'm just letting you know, because I love you.
That was awesome.
But and I will be going back to Left Behind. I've taken notes for Left Behind 2 and 3. They're going to happen right after my 5th season finishes. But the
Revelation Road.
Yeah, Revelation Road, it's the big difference is in it and Left Behind. Apart from trying to shoehorn everything into a short film, this one, you know, you got your storyline going on with all, you know, drama and stuff, and then the Rapture happens at the end, and then there's the sequels coming, which is always wonderful to see with Rapture series, is because the whole tribulation end times belief, it really lends itself to multiple films. But this one, instead of Kirk Cameron, you've got David A.R. White,
Hold on, I'm going to interrupt. David A.R. White as a man with PTSD and pragmatic language disorder.
Yeah. I'm not sure if they established if he was like a full-on special forces guy or just like a genetic experiment to create the perfect human weapon or whatever, but he's dealing with...
for the second movie.
Oh, they established it in the second...
They go into his backstory in the second movie.
Okay, I haven't seen that yet.
Oh, he's Jason Bourne.
Yeah, imagine if it was Jason Bourne, and he's dealing with killer bikers who think they're Vikings just before the Rapture happens.
And he's incapable of a full sentence ever. Like, in the beginning, there's this part, he's on the phone with his wife, and he answers the phone, like, the first scene is him driving in, like, some desert highway, and he answers the phone, and I thought, oh, see, that's it, that's the sin that's gonna keep him from being raptured. He's talking on the phone while he's in the car. But, so, like, there's lightning, and he pulls over, and he's on the phone with his wife, who was played by a very annoying actress, unfortunately. She's like, Josh, what's wrong? Josh, hey, talk to me. Josh, what's happening? And all he had to do was say, oh, there was some lightning, and I pulled over. But no, he's like, no, hold on a second. No, I mean, hold on, honey. And then, like, he gets rear-ended randomly. And then she's like, Josh, what's going on? Josh, are you okay? He's like, yeah, hold on, honey. I'm like, just tell her. Just put sentences together. And that's when I decided.
Thank you. I'm so glad I'm not the only one who thought that.
I'm like, why not? You are a horrible husband if you can't even tell your wife I pulled the car over. And literally, like, the entire movie, I'm just say it, which is why I decided he had a language disorder.
What do you expect him to say? Be like, I'm sorry, I'm so damaged. I am a horrible, horrible person. I'm tortured because I was in Brother, a Holy Man Undercover.
No, I just figured like. Oh, is that a Christian movie joke?
Yes, it is. Holy Man Undercover was written, directed, and starred David A.R. White as two different roles.
Oh.
It actually is a little bit.
I haven't seen it. My parents saw it and told me about it, and I don't want to see it.
It was cheesy.
What I find weird, So in that film, he's playing this Amish guy, and so it's like Christian movie does Amish.
I have to know, because I shelve Christian fiction books at work, and I fetch them for customers, and I straighten them. What is it about the Amish? Because I'm from Pennsylvania. And you go to Lancaster County, you see the Amish and the buggies on Route 30, or you go to the farmer's market, and there's an Amish market right near my best friend's house, and I go there and I buy treats. But why do people who write Christian books think the Amish are so interesting? Like, I want to know why.
Well, with David A.R. White, it was because he grew up Mennonite.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess that makes sense then.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't looked into why we're so fascinated with the Amish. I have a friend who grew up Amish, and they came out of that. And yeah, so I don't know. I wish I could answer your question.
I'm gonna sort of just come up with a theory that has absolutely no grounds in reality, but it's like, oh my god, it's like a time machine. We get to look at what the Pilgrims were like. Look at them with their cell phones.
Little House on the Prairie in real life.
Yeah.
Look at those Amish selling baked goods to white people. I love the Amish market. There's always something great there.
But with Revelation Road, it's one thing I really don't get is the casting, because and when it comes to these movies, generally in the industry of modern American sort of independent Christian cinema, you've got the two types of actors. You've got the ones who are the dedicated Christian actors who mostly appear in these roles. Therefore, David A.R. White, he's the king of that, and I really wish he'd do secular movies because he's great. He's also got his own meme. Look up Jesus Man in Know Your Meme. That's him.
Really? I'll look that up.
Yeah. It's just him going, "Hey Scotty, Jesus Man," from Second Chance, I think it was.
And then the credits roll.
Oh yeah, that's okay. I'm looking that up right now.
So
keep going.
You got them, and then you got like the secular actors who pretty much treat it like an asylum gig. You got in Revelation Road, you got Ray Wise. Usually you got like Eric Roberts, although Kevin Sorbo's turned up quite a bit recently.
Kevin Sorbo,
which is just a bit odd, but in the casting of this one, you've got the leader of the bikers is I believe it's Brian Bosworth, the former American football player. I'm just wondering why they would cast him. He became a Christian while filming this, so he wasn't a Christian. Cool. He wasn't a Christian before, so he's not really an actor. But they cast him as the lead villain.
No, because maybe he prayed that he would be a better actor, and finally by the end of the movie, they were like, "Well, you did a good enough job, I guess." And he was like, "Oh, my prayers are answered. It must be."
Oh yeah, but they got this guy. They hired him because of his name, and he was a secular sort of actor, but then they had Sting playing his second in command, and Sting has more acting experience and is already a Christian, so he would probably do the role for less money. So I'm just really baffled by why they cast the guy in the first place.
I think it was because he looked like a Viking werewolf. So for the audience who hasn't seen the movie, basically David A.R. White is a door-to-door salesman who's being harassed by these bikers that it's implied that they're demons or controlled by demons or something. And so, but the head guy's grizzled and he wears all these furs and he has this huge, like Mjolnir type, like a war hammer, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this would be really great if they were werewolves. This is what this movie needed. Also, his daughter's around who really looks like a young, perpetually depressed Cher.
She also looks a bit like China with all of the steroids surgically removed.
I guess.
And
I'm not
played
interested.
by David A.R. White's real-life wife.
Really?
Oh dear, if David A.R. White listens to us.
That's Andrea Logan White.
She looks like Cher. I mean, no offense, she does. I'm just saying.
I've just destroyed all of his goodwill for complimenting him on his acting and everything with that one comment. I apologize.
If you're David A.R. White, write the show. But and parts of it were good. Like there's this one guy who gets involved in his life who is he runs a gun store, and but he's totally an evangelical. But it makes sense with him because you find out that he's a veteran, and so I was like, all right, I his character's plausible. I can see that, but their granddaughter is staying with them for the summer to keep her out of trouble, and she's played by somebody who's obviously like 21 or 22, trying to be 14, and I felt bad about that. And this was also a Christian movie where God didn't show up much, except to kind of like be a really elaborate set producer, Like, there was always very atmospheric and dramatic lightning and flickering effects and everything. Like, God was editing. I'll put that crash of lightning right there. I think it looks really good. God said.
You're making him sound like Michael Bay in this context.
Well, given some of the shots of David A.R. White sort of being all like, "I'm gonna kill you," No,
there's a really great transition where he falls afoul of the bikers, and so does pretty much everybody else in the movie. And so the bikers come to the old gun guy and his wife and granddaughter, and they're basically like peppering the house with automatic gunfire, and there's glass exploding everywhere, and of course, the guy shooting, returning fire with his shotgun, and it's this very, dramatic scene. And then the next shot is David A.R. White sitting on the bed in his motel room eating a ho-ho. And it was just so bizarre. They were like, get down, don't worry, oh God, we gotta be okay. And then he's like, I love little Debbie, nom 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 nom. And I felt bad.
Yeah, the ho-hos are a running gag in both the first and second movies.
Okay.
I've watched both. Did a trivia, they actually filmed 1 and 2 together in the space of about 10 days. And I can, watching them together, I can totally see that, because they both have severe pacing issues, especially the first one. It's really slow at parts. A lot of those atmospheric shots were clearly put in for padding.
Yeah, like he's trying to sell bulletproof vests, coincidentally, to the guy that owns the gun store, and then they're held up by the bikers. And he, goes through, a snap Jason Bourne kind of moment and just, totally, kills 3 of them. Like, he just, turns the situation around and he shoots them. And obviously, it's obviously self-defense and stuff like that. So, but the sheriff's like, well, there's going to be a lot of paperwork, and we're going to ask you to stick around for a while, just in case there's no problems and stuff like that. And the first thing everyone says to him is, oh my gosh, what war did you fight in? You must be a soldier. And so he's like, it'll really make my wife upset that I won't be home. So he calls her, and he does not... The first thing is, I have to stay in town for a few more days. Now, I killed 3 men. Again, it's something you'd want to tell your spouse.
In the scene with him talking to Ray Wise about the bulletproof vest, and Ray kind of, he's like, okay, now, if you answer all my questions, son, I will buy the bulletproof vest from you. Now, would you trust this to defend your family? And then it's like, would you put more faith in this bulletproof vest or in the Lord to protect your family? I just wanted David R. White to reply with something along the lines of, it depends on what we're facing, really. If it's a guy with a gun, the vest. If it's a vampire, God.
I would have said it depends on if God's shooting at me or not. There's also, so he's at this creepy motel, and so they go out, the motel is run by a Hindu guy, and they go out of their way to show you that he's Hindu by showing this huge statue of Ganesh that's right on his desk. And, I mean, I have known, Indian businessmen and businesswomen who, will sometimes have, a small little shrine in their office, and that's cool. I've seen that before. But they're like, here's the lightning and the flickering stuff shining off Ganesh's face. This guy's going to be a total douche later on in the movie, haha. And then later, the rapture happens, spoiler alert, and everyone's, trying to flee, and he gets pissed off, and he gets out a shotgun, and I say, you have to pay me. You can't leave without paying me. And then that's kind of brought across as he's being crazy for doing this, and I was like, wait a second, no. They're trying to skip out on, that's not what Jesus would do. He'd pay the bill, and then he'd flee.
Or be born in a parking lot because the motel was full up.
Well,
Yeah, more fun trivia. I actually grew up in that area where they filmed that, and they filmed that motel's the Pear Blossom Motel in Pear Blossom, California. Driven by there many times, and I thought it was hilarious because I think it was either in the synopsis on the DVD or I saw somewhere where they kind of imply that in Eric Roberts' accent that it's supposed to take place somewhere in the middle of Texas. But there's Joshua trees everywhere, and those don't grow in Texas. Those are in Southern California.
I was thinking it was like Arizona.
Someone who grew up there, I thought it was hilarious.
Oh, that's great. That's like me being over here. There's a lot of these telltale things in geography in America which I don't pick up on, which you guys do. So That's like finding out that Halloween was supposed to be set in the Midwest and it was filmed in California. I was like, I don't notice this stuff because, America's America. It's not a continent or anything.
America. I mean, it was an okay movie. It wasn't particularly offensive, but like at the end, so the bikers have got the old guy and his wife, and the girl's somewhere hiding, and David A.R. White's on the phone with his wife, and he's like, I have to tell you that I haven't always done things and stuff, and God, and all of a sudden this light shining, and I thought, oh my gosh, is the revelation going to happen just because he had this conversation with his wife? But then it just did anyway.
I thought, Revelation Road, I quite like it.
The power of your marriage compels me.
The bikers I felt was the weakest part of the film. I really quite liked the idea of some sort of human weapon in the hopefully the Antichrist turns up in the second one and we've got like human weapon versus the Antichrist. But if they're going to have the bikers there, I really wish they'd done something else weird, and because it's like 2/3 or maybe 1/2 of the way towards a really, really amazingly demented high concept movie. I can make a suggestion, make the bikers werewolves or something. I could go with that, embrace the fact that they're being a bit silly.
Or, and this is again because, I've played Innominate by Steve Jackson games, or the guy's not a super soldier. He's an angel, like a former angel. Like, go with me on this one. Like, kind of along the lines of City of Angels or stuff like that, he, for some reason that he chose to, not to fall, because a fall would imply that he's a demon, but he chose to give up his immortality a long time ago. And he's just been living these lives, but he still used to be like, an angel warrior back during like the original battle and stuff like that. Like a Grigori, one of the Watcher angels that, hangs around on Earth. That'd be pretty cool. But again, yeah, I've played a lot of Innominate.
Yeah, as we stated earlier, I have a great disdain for the end time genre. I think it's overdone and always poorly executed. But I admit Revelation Road is kind of a guilty pleasure for me because I did enjoy it. It helps if you watch 1 and 2 together because they're basically that's the whole story right there. The first movie is more like Act 1 and the first half of Act 2. And then the second movie it doesn't have the pacing issues the first one has because it's all the action, the chase from the bikers and conflict after conflict. And it's definitely keeps you going. The only thing that interrupts the second movie is they're constantly going to flashbacks to give us all the backstory on the bad guys and why. It gives you a lot of answers to questions you weren't asking and doesn't answer the questions at least I was asking. Like, why does Ryan Bosworth's character have this god complex? He has this whole scene with David A.R. White at the hotel where, he's looking for this worthy warrior to face him, and he has this big spiel about titans and tyrants and all this stuff. And one day there's going to be a reckoning, and all the politicians and the lawyers will get what's coming to them, and all this stuff. And David A.R. White stands up to him and says, "Yeah, hopefully there's always going to be people like me to take down people like you." And he's like, "Ah, yes, finally, a worthy adversary, aha."
At the vending machine.
He has this weird mindset that they don't really explain why he thinks the way he does, why he has these delusions of grandeur, and yet is just stuck running some psychotic biker gang in the middle of the Mojave Desert.
See, I saw him kind of more, almost like Randall Flagg from The Stand, the Walking Man from Stephen King, who's never really explicitly stated to be the devil, but he's kind of close.
Yeah, like I said, you could get that from the first one because they leave so much unanswered. It is kind of vague in the second movie. Like I said, it explains a lot, and he is just a guy. He's got a tragic backstory. Unfortunately, sorry to put your bubble on.
No, that's a pity. I got the feeling that.
But
I got the feeling the second one's going to make the whole thing a bit more generic. That's a bit unfortunate.
Yeah, they definitely. The second one's not as stylized as the first one is. The first one has a lot of the stylized cinematography and the.
Yeah, it's really like ambiguous. Like it could be happening last year, or it could be happening in the future.
Yeah. And it's almost like they kind of abandoned that for the second one for some reason, which I think is odd because it breaks up, kind of makes the tone inconsistent too. But at the same time, yeah, the second movie does feel more like just a normal action movie. The first one, definitely, they tried for a more unique, stylized approach, and it worked at times. At other times, I think they overdid it a little bit. They got a little overboard, I guess. But as far as the story goes, it works because I think they're not focusing on this guy's the Antichrist and this is how this prophecy is going to be fulfilled. And they taking the Left Behind or Apocalypse approach. And this is focusing on more of a human story, focusing on just these people who are caught up in these events. But the bikers are just really weird. It's like there's not enough so given about them, and I felt like they were underutilized. I do know that with their really fast production schedule, the script didn't go through as many drafts as maybe it should have. And the thing I saw behind the scenes video they post online, it's like they're like David A.R. White and another producer were trick-or-treating with their kids, and they had said, hey, I have this idea for a movie, that'd be fun. And then in April they were filming, which...
That's pretty good.
That's insanely fast. But so from concept to filming, only in the space of a few months, you're not going to have the time to really polish up a script and get it to where you have a really great movie. In my review on my side of Revelation Road, I call it a diamond in the rough because there's a great potential for a really, really great story there. It just needed a bit more work to really take it that extra mile. Like I said, it's kind of a guilty pleasure. It's not a great movie, but I did enjoy it. And they're actually filming the third movie right now.
Oh, they are? Okay.
Revelation Road 3, The Black Rider. And Kevin was in that. And
now that sounds sexy, gotta say.
He's dressed in some kind of weird cowboy pimp outfit. I'm not sure what's going on with Kevin's costume. It's interesting. I haven't heard any details on what his character is supposed to be, but the picture I saw is really weird.
I got the feeling I'm going to be disappointed by the third one, but I really, really want them to make Revelation Road like this Christian movie grab bag of like random other things as well. Sure, you got bikers in the first two. Okay, great. Second one, make Kevin Sorbo like an undead demonic cowboy. Excellent. Then the fourth one, have cyborgs in there. That
would be cool.
Because a lot of the end times movies, okay, they're very similar, and while I think they're really amusing because of the tropes and everything, it is nice to see someone just taking the concept and doing something interesting with it.
Yeah, because the first thing that you should be thinking about the end times is, wow, what would I be doing after that? Because ain't no way I'm going to be raptured. But so if your target audience are people who probably will be left behind, like those are some good stories there. Like imagine like somebody who was just not particularly religious at all, and they're like, oh, the rapture happened. Wow, there's like suddenly a smaller population than there were before. Like a lot of the problems of overpopulation are solved, and like there's more jobs to go around or stuff like that.
How about someone could do a rapture movie where right after the rapture, their way of dealing with it, rather than looking up like in Apocalypse, they have all these sermons by guys talking about the end times. Have someone goes in a binge of rapture movies.
Psh, that's what you would.
that would be awesome.
You could live stream it, but we are.
I'm just thinking you could use that in the film as a jumping off point to basically play with the tropes of the genre.
That's true. But we are going to be running a little teeny bit long this week, and we're going to be skipping some of our regular parts. But now we get on to what we saved the best for last. And, honey, do you want to continue?
Yeah, I'll introduce this bit. Because Zack is not just a indie Christian reviewer, he is also an indie Christian filmmaker, and he recently finished his first feature film, In His Steps, which was based on a web series he was doing. It was taken from his web series. It was based on a book, I believe.
Yeah, the book was written in the 1890s, In His Steps by Charles Sheldon. It's basically what spawned the whole "what would Jesus do" idea. It kind of had that resurgence in the 1990s. But yeah, it's based off of that. We did a modern day adaptation. We started off as a web series, but then after the first season, we decided to just turn it all into a feature instead.
And whenever we were in the Family Christian, I picked up a couple of movies last time I was over, and we were talking about Christmas. That was the same trip where I found a copy of a 1940s movie called In His Steps, and I really wished we'd had your number because I would have texted you and basically said, we found somebody ripped off your movie and used a time machine to go back to the 40s and release it.
Just like Time Chasers.
Time changer.
Actually, seeing that, I've seen that version, and that was actually part of what inspired me to look into doing a more modern day version. I saw it's actually from the 60s. I saw that one, and then read the book. And was like, oh, hey, this could use a more modern day treatment.
Yeah, at that point I didn't realize about the book. I didn't actually realize that until I saw your version, and I was like, it's based on a book. That totally makes sense. No.
Now, I do have to confess, so I watched this the other night, and there might have been a glass of sake involved, but I really, really, really wanted to riff, because there's this part where this guy, he's homeless and he's sick, and he comes to this company to ask for work, and I say, do you have any work? The guy's like, no, there's no work for you, now get. And he has, like, a Bible passage framed on the wall, and the guy, like, looks at the Bible passage and then looks back at him and is like, huh, and I was like, oh, snap, son, you got called a Pharisee. And then there's this part
I would be very much interested in hearing you guys do a riff track of my movie. That would be very entertaining.
I really wanted to, because it takes place, like, there's an establishing shot at the beginning where you see this guy coming up to the city limits of a town called Raymond. And one of the next shots after that is him going to, it's the sign that says First Church of Raymond. And I really want to say, well, everyone does love him. The first thing I thought of was Ray Romano, and then I was like, oh, right, that's the town.
Now, I watched the movie, must have been about 2 weeks ago now, and in the 2 weeks since, well, I was in the middle of having a pretty bad flu at the time when I watched it, and since then I've been doing a lot of editing and writing, and there's the whole deal with Justin. So if my memory is not quite crisp, I've not had a chance to rewatch it again, so then I apologize. So I my issues, or I talk about, might be a bit general rather than perfectly exact, so I hope I don't cause any trouble that way. But what I should mention about the riffing thing, this isn't going to be quite a riff, but next time Omega's over here, we are hoping to do something which was inspired by her almost violent reaction to Unidentified.
I hate that movie.
So I had this idea of, we would like to do marathons and like film vlogs, so instead what we're going to do is get Omega really, really drunk and make her watch some Christian movies that annoy her and then vlog it afterwards.
I will watch those for sure.
I won't say fuck too much. But so this is another movie where somebody was talking on the cell phone while driving, but she nearly hit someone, so we know that God wasn't pleased with that. But I gotta say, my favorite character in the movie was the waspy old grandmother. Because she was like, that's not how we behave in church. Don't you cause a scene. And I was like, she's so horrible. I know so many people like that. And it's just, and here's the thing, I was thinking about this last night, because so I watched it, and I came downstairs to get some pretzels and peanut butter, and I'm messing around downstairs. And so this is the story of this girl, and she's a really talented singer-songwriter. In fact, the opening credits is framed as though, you know, she's recording a song for her YouTube channel. And I was like, I see what you did there. Because at the end she's like, okay, so please like and subscribe, everybody. This homeless guy comes, and he's like, my wife and children died, and I have nothing, and you guys say that you're Christians, but you don't live like Christians, and in fact, you're all jerks. And then he pretty much dies. And so that really bothers the pastor. And he's like, you know what? That guy's right. You know, I'm not a very good pastor, and I'm going to do this thing. So he tells the church, all right, we're going to do this thing for a year. It's a pledge, right? So you got to do, before you make a decision or do anything, you think to yourself, is this what Jesus would do? And I was like, okay, I see where this is going. So the girl takes part, and then she gets an offer for a record contract, and she, you know, ultimately ends up turning it down. And her best friend is like, well, I'm faithful, but what have I really done lately? And then there's this guy who I've been calling Friendzone Freddy, the fanfic writer, who's like, I will do anything for her, even this pledge, even though I don't really know if I'm into it or not. And then there's the best friend's brother, who I've been calling Broseph Stalin, who's like, I totally want her to like me, but I'm kind of a jerk, actually. And it's kind of like the story of like all of these very different people trying to do this thing, and the rest of the church is like, we don't cotton to this is not really corporate, so pastor, you're fired. And then there's a subplot where, you know, they go into, this was another thing that I wanted to riff, is there's a bad section of town called the Rectangle. And kind of before that concept is introduced, that it's the bad part of town, the grandmother says he was probably a drunk homeless guy from the Rectangle. And I was like, I know, right? All the heroin addicts that hang out at the Rhombus. Don't even get me started with the tetrahedron.
Oh, those fucking flatlanders.
The weird stuff like that's from the book. I took the names from the book, the city of Raymond.
I figured you did, but I was like,
It's all fair. Yeah.
I'm just having visions of drunk people from Flatland.
Yes! Crossover.
Okay, Zach, please take your raw footage and then get a copy of one of the movie adaptations of Flatland and make a crossover.
I'll work on that.
But the cool thing is that, so, you have this girl, alright, spoiler alerts. So, Friendzone Freddy, the fanfic writer, wants to get with her, and this has to be explained to her that he has a crush on her by somebody else, and she's like, what? And they don't end up together, because at the end he's like, oh, tear her picture apart. She doesn't love me. I'm gonna go become emo. But it's not implied that she ends up with her friend's older brother, either. So, I was joking to myself, I was like, this is how Rachel became a lesbian. And then I was like, well, actually, no, because she really doesn't show any interest in guys or girls. She's really devoted to, her music and being Christian and stuff. And I was like, this is how Rachel became a nun. And I was like, yeah, but no, not really, because she's not Catholic and stuff like that. So then I realized she was the perfect protagonist for me. Because what really annoys me about a lot of movies where there's a female protagonist is that it's all, no matter what's going on in her life, it's all about the love interest. That's the only thing in her life. And I was like, this is a protagonist that I could get behind, because for once, her whole entire life is not about the love interest.
So she follows she succeeds in the Bechdel test.
Well, yeah.
Although she does spend a lot of time thinking about Jesus. Does that count?
Yeah, but it's not in a sexual way, though, so I don't think it counts.
If there's anyone who knows more about the Bechdel test than us, please tell us. Does talking about Jesus constitute a breach of the Bechdel test?
Well, no, because she talks about her music with with her best friend and other stuff. So as long as it's two women talking in a movie and they're not talking about a guy.
Okay, cool. So, Zach, you without meaning to, you made a more progressive movie than a lot of people in Hollywood.
Wow, yeah, I was not even. Wow, that's amazing. I wasn't aware of that whole facet you brought up, but that's very interesting.
I recall being very, very impressed with the fact that the guy, I forget his name, he became a very, very serious Christian and his family sort of began resenting him.
Oh yeah, the corporate guy. I
was really, really glad that they basically got to yell at him for that, because this guy, his family were happy with the way that they were doing things, and then he unilaterally decided that they were all going to become very, very serious Christians without asking them and stuff like that. And I got the feeling that in a lot of other films that I've watched, if that character was in there, they would not have been exposed to the light of "you're a douchebag."
Well, the thing about him, I kind of felt bad for him, because he is having problems with his daughter, but it's kind of like the normal teenage kind of problems. Like, a lot of teenage girls are kind of separated emotionally anyway, and they can't communicate very well with their fathers during that age, so that's pretty much normal. But I felt bad because at the beginning, he first takes this pledge, and, his who I assume is his second in his company comes up, is like, here's the orders for this week, we're just starting to break even, and he's like, we're charging too much. That's not fair. That's not what Jesus would do. And the guy's like, but we're going to go bankrupt. And I was like, if you think that you're charging unfair rates, you can bring them down a bit. But if your business isn't doing well and your employees depend on you for their paycheck in a town where it's already been, clarified that there's no work at all, that's really not good. If you end up going out of business, they're going to starve in the rectangle.
Well, no one cares about the rectangle.
And he's like, guess what? We're going to be missionaries. And they're like, but this is such a bad idea. And he's like, no, it's not.
Why did we turn into Mormons? What's going on?
Well, I mean, doing missionary work is all well and good, but, that's kind of something that you do discuss. Like, when he told his daughter, you have no say in the matter. I wanted to be like, sure she does, she just have a passport.
Yeah, I get the feeling that a lot of the films that I've seen, he would not have been exposed as the douchebag that he was being. Like, a lot of other films that I've watched would have been supportive of him in that. While in this film, it was like, yeah, he means well, but he's being an ass. And
And
he's reacting in the worst way to a bad thing.
But the cool thing was at the end, he was like, I have to give up on this because it's really straining my relationship with my family. And that's cool, you know, that he wasn't so... that like, I think the thing is that at the end, they all did what Jesus would have done anyway. You know, like, he ended up being like, well, you know, if I stop doing one thing, it's gonna improve relationships with my family, and that's what I want. And I think that's what he should have done in the first place, you know? And then, like, the girl who basically sat around the house all day, I don't know, I guess watching TV, she started a women's shelter and, you know, made a difference and stuff like that. And the brother who was kind of, you know, a little bit of like a frat boy, you know, he's like, oh, I want to try to be better, and so this girl will like me, and oh, my sister is really trying to make a difference, so I'm going to help her out, you know. Never say what happened to the grandmother, though.
Although the thing where the guy, he says he has to give it up because it's turning his family against him, I would have loved to see in a character who was like a complete asshole point out that in one of the Gospels, you know, Jesus says that he's there to turn families against each other, and he could actually quote the Bible, and then the guy's like, yeah, but even, you know, anyone can quote scripture, you ass. You know, you're being stupid. You're taking, you know, do something along the lines of try to show that even though the guy is being a decent human being, that there's someone who is opposed to that will use the scripture and twist it in order to make the guy appear to be unchristian for that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, you know who I like? I like the character of the pastor best because the actor played him very well. And he's kind of like, wow, you know what? I thought that I was doing a good job, but actually I'm not, and I'm going to examine how I do that. And everyone's like, that's not really what we wanted you to do. And he's like, I'm doing it anyway.
Oh, yeah, and then they fired him.
Well, I actually went through something like that when I was at St. John's because there was this new youth leader that everyone thought was just the bee's knees. And he was like, we're going to go and do mission stuff in the city. And I was like, that's cool, because usually when we did that, there was a soup kitchen that nuns ran that we would help out at sometimes, and that was always fun. But he took us to Planned Parenthood to protest outside of it, and I'm kind of slow, so I didn't know that they did abortions at Planned Parenthood. I thought that, like, as the name implied, like, you know, my mom told me, oh, we tried very hard to have you when we first got married. I was like, oh, so I figured if you were trying to have a kid, you went there and they gave you advice and vitamins and stuff like that. So I had no clue why we were even there. But he took us there to protest without really telling our parents about it, and there was a lot of backlash for that, and he ended up getting fired.
Well, I don't know what, you know, over in the UK we have sort of similar-ish places, but in America, am I wrong about Planned Parenthood? I know that they do abortions, but that's like a small part of what they do. They do other reproductive.
Like if you can't afford condoms, you can go and they'll give you condoms, and they do like pap smears and mammograms for women who can't afford it, and they have a lot of other health services too. And they will give you like prenatal information, like if you can't afford a prenatal program and stuff like that, they'll help you out, you know.
Am I right in thinking that they can help in very, very limited ways about helping someone get pregnant in very, very limited ways? Obviously not like IVF or anything.
Oh, well, I have, like, information and stuff like that for you, but anything medical, that I don't know.
With the whole, you know, what would Jesus do thing, I kind of wish you would, like, have had a little bit of extra fun with it. So it's like, you know, some sort of, like, one line about the end saying, like, ever since this what would Jesus do thing, it really took off, people have been assaulting fig trees a lot.
Are there even any fig trees, like, around? Like, where would you go to find one?
Probably not, but in the story, Jesus beat up
around this area.
Probably not, but Jesus in that story assaulted the fig tree for not giving figs for the wrong time of year for figs. So they could be attacking apple trees for not giving figs, and it's perfectly in keeping with what Jesus did in the story. Because
maybe
it's just
they had
silly.
to go to the garden center at Walmart.
In the film, I really, really, really. I don't know if squeeze quite the word, but I was really, really glad to see you turn up, Zach, as a complete, as like this, you know, villainous character. It was like, it's Zach.
He's like, I'm a badass.
I'm here.
I did not write that part for myself, but as I was writing it, thinking as a producer, was like, yeah, if we can't find someone else, I could probably find someone.
You're like, you can tell I'm evil because I scowl and have a black t-shirt.
You did. You were like, emo you. See, next time you should just grow a goatee, so everyone knows it's evil you.
Hello, it's me, the master.
Yes, it was me the whole time.
I'm going to force everyone to get an abortion. Ha ha ha. The character himself...
The doctor has to stop the master from, forcing the entire population of whales to have an abortion, even if they're guys. Sorry about that.
I think I have an idea for the next Doctor Who fan film.
There you go.
There was, you're saying, like, even if they're guys, there was an episode of the TV show Monkey, which was based on in Journey into the West.
Oh, yeah.
And there's an episode of that which features one of the main characters who's a male getting mystically pregnant by the gods and stuff. And then the other heroes are trying to, basically forcing them to get a mystical abortion even though they don't want to. And, the fact that they managed it was considered a victory for the forces of good. And...
But was it like a demon baby, or was it Buddha?
No, it was just going to be a regular baby, but apparently, the heroes, it's the heroes have to make sure he gets... It's just so morally fucked up. It's like... Sorry, your idea of, all the men getting pregnant in Wales just reminded me of that. What if the men want to keep their baby? Oh,
so
no.
if Stephen Moffat uses that next season, I'm totally suing. But no, it was a good movie, and we enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was, I've seen a lot of, low-budget Christian stuff, and, you will not deny about, your low budget and stuff. A lot of people who are used to high-budget films would probably have a knee-jerk reaction against that, because a lot of people do have a knee-jerk reaction to low budgets. But, for me,
our budget was $25,000 for it. Very low budget, and all volunteer cast, and crew. In fact, our cast and crew came from all over the country. Some of them were locals, like the businessman Alex Powers. He was local. The grandmother, she's local. She actually runs the
Is she mean in real life?
church.
I mean, don't say that.
No, she's not. She is the sweetest lady.
Okay.
She's the director of the children's center at our church.
Oh no.
She runs a preschool. So yeah, no, she is. It's the complete opposite of her character. The pastor is actually played by my dad.
I actually recognized I recognized him as, I figured he was your dad, but I wasn't entirely sure. Maybe like uncle or something. But yeah, I could tell that there was at least one of your relatives in there.
Yep. And then our lead actress, Laura Seabrook, who plays Rachel, she's actually from Alberta, Canada. So she flew down for that.
So I had a question about Finn. So who told the vlogger that she turned down the contract? Because I figured that probably that the record label themselves said something about it.
Yeah, that question has been asked me before, and basically my answer is that the news got around. It's kind of general entertainment and industry gossip.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
That stuff just seems to get out, and so I just kind of chalked it up to that.
If she's that famous, and people are interested in her in like the equivalent of TMZ and stuff, so why couldn't she just put ad revenue on her thing and on her YouTube and make money that way? Then she could do everything on her own. Oh, fair enough. But then she doesn't really need the record company then, record contract, because she's able to make the money on her own in her own way without having to give up any of her morals.
Well, I figured that maybe she could sign with a Christian record company, so she would know that, the whole thing of Jesus wouldn't go on tour, but he would proselytize through music. That's what I thought.
Yeah, she could team up with DC Talk.
Oh yes, that could be the sequel, and you could totally get them to come.
Yeah, the our last over New Year, we were visiting some friends of ours.
I knew you were going to tell the story.
Oh yeah, it was not a really amazing story. It's just that I insisted on doing a bunch of DC Talk on Rock Band.
And see, my friend's husband, who is the owner of the Rock Band, he was totally one of their groupies back in the day.
Yeah, he met up with them and stuff. But then, right after DC Talk, I convinced him while he was really, really drunk to download a bunch of Cannibal Corpse. So, and then try to sing that, and that was just hilarious.
You were so mean to him. He probably had no voice the next day.
But when it comes to these very low budget movies, I have seen a bunch which are much, 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 much worse, and some of them have been released on DVD and stuff like that, and sold in Family Christians, which I think are a chain store. And so you should be very, very proud. Your film is markedly better than a bunch of people who had at least some kind of backing. The example I'm going to use is My Refuge, a film which was comically, hilariously bad, and the cover has the cover looks like the last shot of Fight Club, but like the rest of it is just, there's no explosions in this film whatsoever, and yet the entire cover is these two people in a destroyed building. Your one was much better, and there's the hilariously not good low budget, Antichrist, Christians with parkour versus the Antichrist movies. And
parkour, you say?
Yes, the Christian parkour versus the Antichrist. Yeah, there's two of them. I think they're working on a third.
I love parkour.
I'm going to review them at some point because they're funny, but your stuff is way better than theirs, and you had no, first film and everything like that, so you should be really fucking proud of yourself.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And ignore the fact that she said fuck if you're one of Zack's fans.
If they've listened to the previous interview, they realize that we have a liberal use of the F word and the C word and everything else liberally.
We're liberals.
Yes.
We use words liberally. So there.
When I share the link, I'll include a language disclaimer. No worries.
Okay. Cool.
They'll be duly warned.
So like little old grandmas, like, oh look, Zack's got up. Oh dear, what they said.
They said the word lesbian.
No. Apparently, that's enough to piss off the people that Tick would take comments. But like I said, this episode has run a little bit long, so we are coming up to the end of it. And Zack, where can we find pretty much all of your stuff?
Oh boy. We'll narrow it down. For In His Steps, our website is inhisstepsmovie.com. DVDs are kind of available at the moment. We have a manufacturer issue, and so we kind of suspended sale of the DVDs for the time being. I'm going to, after we're done recording here, I'm going to put up a reservation button so people can start pre-ordering DVDs again. So it's inhisstepsmovie.com. And then for my reviews, you can go to indychristianreview.com. That's INDY christianreview.com. You can see my reviews of things like Revelation Road 1 and 2. And yes, those are my main websites. I've got others, but we'll save those for another time.
I'm sure you'll be on again to talk about Christian movies in another year or so.
Oh, I certainly hope so.
It's a tradition.
I'm glad to come back. Yeah, I like this tradition. Oh, and I also want to throw out there, too, I just found out yesterday that In His Steps got selected, there is an official selection at a film festival in Texas, the Christian Worldview Film Festival. They just started
Oh, cool.
Oh, that's cool.
They're playing there in March. So
that's very cool.
Yeah, I'll figure out how to get down to San Antonio.
I just had a random idea. You should totally apply for Trauma Dance. Because Trauma, they don't care about what genre your film is, and they just really love independent filmmaking. So they actually might get behind it, even though they do the Toxic Avenger and the Class of Nukem High and Poltergeist, but they might actually get behind you. I don't know if they definitely show you, but they usually show 2 or 3 films, and I think its application for Trauma Dance is free.
Oh, okay.
Plus, you get to go to New Jersey. The ringing endorsement right there.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Although, just for regular fans as well, if you have the chance to go to Trauma Dance, don't let the fact that it's New Jersey and it's like the ass end of Asbury Park and it's like a 1970s dingy bowling alley where they do everything, don't let all of that scare you. It's a really, really interesting thing to go to. Plus the celebrities that go. When we went, they had about 4 or 5, including the guys directing Guardians of the Galaxy. And they just hung around. It was like MagFest, just everyone hanging around, and rather than having to do autograph panels or anything, you could just talk to people.
And meet Lloyd Kaufman.
Yeah, the Toxic Avenger, guy who created Fangoria, a couple of film directors. It was fascinating.
But for today, Zack, since you are our guest, I have the Oxford American Dictionary here. What page should I turn to?
So in that case, turn to page
661.
No,
Sorry.
would you stop that?
81.
Okay, page 81.
Let's see if this is controversial.
81. All right, column 1 or 2?
2.
All right, 2, 4, 6, 7, 29.
15.
All right.
Yeah, this will be the jumping off point to the next episode, but we can never promise that we'll stay on this subject.
Barrette. A graduated glass tube with a tap used for measuring small quantities of liquid run out of it. We're going to talk about chemistry.
Okay.
Titration, FTW.
I don't know anything about chemistry. That's going to be fun.
So, for all of us here, this has been Lesbian Talk episode 45. I have been the Omega. We've had Zack Lawrence, and honey, who do you want to have been today?
I have been a small blue action figure of Colin Baker that I have in front of me.
That'll do. We'll see y'all next time.